Congratulations and welcome to Hoselink's Gardening Masterclass, where I'm going to show you some of my secret tips in this beautiful garden that I'm lucky enough to work in. By the end of this video, you'll be able to detail your perennials, divide one plant into multiple little plants, and summer-proof your pots, so your garden can perform at its peak through the summer months. Dividing plants is one of the most enjoyable things you can do in the garden. You get to select plants that you know do well in your area and the ones that you love. By digging them up, you get to have multiple free plants spotted through your garden, all for the price of just a little bit of labor. All right, the easiest way to tell whether you can and can't divide a plant is generally by the stems. So if it's got multiple fleshy stems coming out of the ground, that's a great indicator that it can be divided. If it's got a single stem like a rose, or it's really woody like a Russian sage or a lavender, for example, then they don't transplant very well at all. Plus they won't divide and you'll end up just killing your plants. If we look for the fleshy multiple stems or clumping's another one that divides really well, like a sedum or even your daisies that have multiple little clumps growing on the ground, they divide really well. So why don't we go and pick out some of the plants I've already chosen and we'll get dividing. Okay, now we've selected the plant to divide, which is this beautiful purple penstemon. I'm going to show you how to dig him out. The first thing we want to do is you want to dig it down at least 30 centimeters to make sure you're getting a lot of that root ball. And we have to dig around 5 centimeters past the most outside stems, and you have to go all the way around, unfortunately. And when you are digging, you want to dig on a slight angle so you don't have excess soil on the outside, and that'll just make it heavier to take to the next position. When you're digging like this, you want to just leave it down a little bit. You can see it shaking the plant. That'll help loosen it out a bit. And the depth of the spade is normally around the 30 centimeters, so that's kind of what we're sort of aiming for. There we go, and you can see that's just popped out nice and easy. Make sure you grab it from the base with the stems down there. If you grab it up here, you might snap it. Give it a shake, get some excess soil off. There we go. Let's go divide. These are the plants I've selected. The penstemon I dug out earlier, and I also got a sedum autumn joy because it's a clumping plant. It's quite different to the penstemon who has the multiple stems like we talked about. We have to cut them back by 50% to 2/3. This will help the root systems. The root systems are under enormous stress now because we've just dug them out of their home. By removing all of the foliage, they've got much less plant to feed. All we do is we grab it, like you grab your hair, and we just cut it all the way back like this. You can overdo this by cutting back too hard, all the way back into this woody stuff here, and that'll give it far less chance to survive. Think about the foliage as little solar panels that sort of helps absorb the sun and produce sugars. It doesn't look pretty, but it is a necessary evil. You can actually use some of these offcuts, put them in a little pot, and they will take. Sedum actually propagates really well. There we go, they're all cut back. Now the next step is the fun step, and we get dividing. Now there's two main ways you can divide. One's with 2 pitchforks and one's with a spade. Now I understand not everyone has 2 pitchforks, but I thought I'd show you both examples anyway. We put the pitchfork in the very center of the plant and we push down as hard as we can. Sometimes you might have to put your foot on it and push it down. And then we get the other one really close to it so we can push down again. And then we lever against each other like this. And you can see how that's pulling the plant apart. Instead of cutting the roots, we pulled the roots. That wouldn't be there if we used a spade. You don't want your little plant to be too much smaller than that, to be honest, around the sort of 10 centimeter mark. We've got 3 out of that one plant, so that's pretty good. Okay, now the next method is with a spade. This might look a little bit brutal, and it kind of is. It's a bit of fun though too. All you do is you literally chop it like this. You might have to do that if you're not strong enough, like I wasn't just then. And you can see with this one here, you can see how that's the clumping plant and there's not as many roots there, but that'll still all take with this particular plant. It's a totally different look to this. There you go. We've turned that one sedum into 7 little plants and the one penstemon into 3. The next step is super simple. All we have to do is get our new little plants and soak them in this seaweed solution that I prepared earlier and let them soak for around about an hour. The reason we use seaweed tonic and not fertilizer is the seaweed tonic, if you think of it more like a medicine, and the fertilizer is more like a food. We don't want to encourage any growth with the fertilizers, whereas the seaweed tonic helps with shock and it's really good for root development. So it's much better to use a seaweed tonic than it is to use a fertilizer when transplanting or dividing. Make sure you soak the whole root system of each little plant, and we'll just let them soak for roughly an hour and we'll go and prepare their new homes. Okay, we've dug our hole, we've chopped it up nice and fine. Our plants have been soaking for over an hour. It's time to plant. When we're planting, we want to make sure we don't compact the soil too much, because that'll just make it hard for the roots to grow through again. And if we don't compact it enough, when it rains or you water it, it'll expose all the roots. So we just want to give it a nice gentle push down with our fingers like this, making sure we get rid of all the air pockets. And then the one last step that we have to do is we have to give it another drink with some seaweed tonic to water it in. And that's it. All we have to do now is make sure the plant doesn't dry out over the next few weeks, and in no time, your garden will be fuller and more beautiful than ever. Detailing is one of those jobs that us gardeners do every single week. And what is detailing? Detailing is basically deadheading, pruning, and shaping a plant by taking off the flowers. You're sort of tricking Mother Nature into giving you more flowers. Deadheading penstemon, we do the in-out method or the up-down method. It's instead of cutting it all at the same height, so it looks like someone's cut it with a hedger. It looks horrible and tacky, in my opinion. How we do it is we go all different heights. You can see this one here is pretty much done flowering. These guys here still look beautiful, so we'll leave them. So we'll chase this one down to a node, like this guy here. You can see on this one here, it's got the new stem will be growing back in that direction. If you were to cut it to this one down here, for example, it will go back out that way, and then it would smother this whole plant. The plant will continue to get wider and wider. It would collapse in the middle, and basically just looks horrible. So by doing this, it keeps it more compact and more structurally sound. We'll go 5 millimeters above that node there, just like that. And then that'll produce another flower stem and we'll get more flowers. Obviously roses are completely different to penstemon. They grow in a totally different shape. The stems are different, the flowers are different, so therefore we have to deadhead them differently. What I do with roses is I give them a little tap test to see if they can stay or whether they have to go. So for example, this guy, I give him a tap, no petals fall off, he's allowed to stay. This guy, for example, give him a tap, there you go, petals gone, so then I prune him off. I'll use this one as an example, it's a bit clearer. So when you have a little junction like this, where you have lots of flowers that have gone, flowers that aren't looking great, lots of little junctions, which basically just looks messy. We prune them down to a node where there's a 5. See here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves coming off a stem. That'll give us a stronger stem. This one here, for example, only has 3, 1, 2, 3. So chase it down to where there's 5, and there's a little node in there, and that's where the new stem will come from. So we're pruning 5 mil above that. I'm just going to go over the whole plant now and get rid of all these little junctions, all the deadheads, all the flowers that don't look very good, and try and get a bit better shape to the whole plant. You can be brutal with roses because they will always come back. Some people think you can prune it with a chainsaw, but you know, I'm not going to go that far. I might lose my job if I do that. You can see this one here. So see how that's got a sort of half-eaten flower. It's not growing right. It's got a dead flower there. These ones have all been eaten. I'd be brutal with that and I'd chase it down to a 5-leaf stem again and just remove the whole thing, because in a week or two you'll have flowers again. That's looking pretty good there. We've got rid of most of the spent flowers. Another thing with roses, like I was mentioning before, the congestion, how we want the vase shape and how we prune to a node that's shooting outwards. What we can do is cut back some of the center grows, so we have that framework. So all this, roses grow an enormous amount throughout the year. So see, that's much more open in there. So that'll let a lot more sunlight in, it'll let a lot more airflow through, and it'll prevent the fungal diseases by a significant amount. Okay, so that rose is basically done. We might move over to this agastache and I'll show you what I do with the low laying branches. One of the problems with herbaceous perennials is the lower branches can flop and lay on the ground, like this agastache, for example. You can see all these branches down low here. It takes away from the whole shape of the plant, but it can also invite pest and disease into the plant. So it's really important that we prune them whenever we see them. They also lay in hedges like this and can smother other plants and just look terrible and cause all sorts of problems. So what we do is we chase it back to the hardwood. So this is all the softwood here. So you can see there's a little shoot coming off here. We want to go 5 millimeters above that node there, and that'll give us a new stem which will come out here and be nice and strong. But once all this fills in, that'll be a much better shaped plant. Another thing we do is we look for dead, damaged or diseased. I know you've probably heard that a million times, but for example, this one here, so that's just snapped off. We'll just prune him off like that. It doesn't have too much in here luckily, but any dead, damaged and diseased is only going to look bad and invite pest and disease once again. There is one more method of detailing I'd like to show you, so we'll head over and do that. The last bit of detailing I want to show you is great for things like catmint, geranium roseanne, or campanula. Anything that's basically a thug, takes over other plants like this Nepeta here, and falls over under its own weight, so looks quite ratty, the center's all exposed. And all I do with this one is I chase it back to the center, and I go about 10 centimeters up from the crown of the plant or the soil height. And I basically just cut it like that. Seems brutal, and it kind of is, but it's the only way to do it. Helps the other plants as well by not smothering them. You can cut these plants back too far, but Nepeta in particular is really tough. You could go back to the crown, which is down here, but in summer you do want to leave a little bit of foliage as a bit of a protector so the sun doesn't burn the crown, because that can give you a lot of dieback. And also you do need the leaves to be like little solar panels to produce sugars so the plant can grow. So you do want to have some foliage there. It can burn after you've given it a cut back because the center's more exposed than it has been in the past, and all this stuff here is now exposed to the sun that used to be protected from the foliage. A little bit of extra water definitely helps.
These off cuttings, can you do anything with them, or do they just go straight to green?
They do. You can put a cut in a little pot, keep it wet, and they will produce a new little plant for you. But when you've got so much cut-ins, I normally just fill the compost bin with them. That's all done. I know it looks horrible, but you'll only be without flowers for around 3 weeks, and when the flowers do come, it will look much better, and the plants around will thank you for it too. And if you do get out into the garden and give it a go, you'll definitely see the rewards. Summer is already hard enough on our plants with the extra heat, the sun, and the lack of moisture, and then we go and put them in a pot where the conditions are even harsher and expect them to be happy. It's very hard for them, but today I'm going to show you my top 3 tips on how to summer-proof your pot plants. Step 1 is the potting soil. It's super important, probably the most important step of the whole lot. When you're buying your potting mix before you pot up your new plant, you want to buy a premium potting mix. Always buy a premium potting mix. They're so much better in every way. Better water holding capacity, better fertilizers, and if they've got these 5 ticks here, you know it's a quality product. That extra few dollars you spend on this bag rather than the cheaper potting mix will save you in the long run. The next part of the potting soil is saturated. This is a great medium for water holding capacity. It's kind of like a sawdust in a way. It's an excellent product and it helps retain so much more moisture. So what we do is we get our potting mix, we get our mussels, and we open it like that. And then we want to go about 2/3 potting mix, 1/3 saturated. The percentages don't matter 100%, but try and get it as close to that as you can. So that's, if we go, there we go. That seems about right to me. All right, and now we just give it a good mix with our hands. Make sure you're wearing gloves. Give it a good mix through, and this will make that potting mix so much better, and it'll hold so much more water. There we go. Now you've got yourself a super potting mix. Step 2 is watering. Now that might sound silly that I'm going to show you how to water, but so many people get it wrong. I'll show you an example of what I mean. Most people water their plant until the top's wet and they see the water draining out of the bottom like this. There we go, the top's all wet. Then they'll wait for the water to drain out of the bottom. Waiting. Is there any water coming out there yet? Hey, there we go. It's coming out of the bottom. So, the top looks wet, the water's come out of the bottom. Most people think that plant's done, on to the next one. But I want to show you something. Okay. So we peel back the soil here and look at that. It's so dry in there. That's all dry soil. It hasn't been given the chance to absorb all of the moisture. So what we need to do is we need to soak the plant as many times as needed really until all of the potting mix is wet. Normally it takes up to 3 times. So we'll give it another soak like this. I'm sure by the time this is drained through, I'll dig back the potting mix and it'll, for the most part, be wet. I will give it one more hit with water just because it's quite dry, this pot. So many plants can deal with dry weather easier than others. This is a honeysuckle, so it's almost a bit of a weed. So this guy is actually really tough. So it's not showing too many signs of not having any moisture, but flowers, all different types of flowering plants, like foxgloves in the pot over there, for example, would show it really quickly. You can tell by the leaves getting quite crunchy. All right, we're getting there. Slowly but surely.
How do I know if I need to give it like 2 or 3 or 4 soaks?
You'll just need to keep pulling back that soil to see if it's dry underneath. There's no real way. The older the potting mix, the more waters you'll have to give it. If it's new potting mix, you might only have to give it one or 2 drinks. This has been in this pot for quite some time though, and it does get neglected quite a bit. That's why I've brought it as an example. But yeah, unfortunately you'll have to just peel it back and see for yourself. You can see that's damp all the way down in there. Like I'm going quite deep now. That's my whole finger length, and that's wet all the way down. So that second and third water really did help. I know it's far more time consuming, but it's so beneficial for the plant. I'm gonna give it one last little soak just for the sake of it. Okay, now we've done that one, we'll go and give our new guy a drink. Okay, step 3. It's a bit of a cheat code that not many people know about at all. It's called Drought Shield. And I spray the foliage on all of my pot plants with it because it protects against the heat, the sun, the hot, dry winds, and it helps the plant save up to 50% more moisture. And it lasts up to 90 days. So all I do is I spray it like this, literally cover every single bit of foliage that you can. When the plant puts on new growth, you will have to respray it because it's a contact spray. There we go. It's as simple as that. So there's my top 3 tips for summer-proofing your pot plants that'll save you so much water and time. Maybe even enough time to go and buy some more pot plants to look after. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all learned something. I'll see you again in the next garden masterclass in autumn.